ওই একবার এইখানটায় যারা এইখানটায় সেটা না এই ক্যামেরা দিতে পারবো আইফোনটা আইফোনটা এটা দিয়েই হবে এই ক্যামেরা দিয়েই হবে সব ক্যামেরা উপরে বলো Let us start today's lecture. So, in the previous class, we have developed the expression for the path integral. So, we developed an expression for the propagator. So, this is the propagator, and we developed an expression, the path integral expression for this propagator. So, we have path integral expression for the propagator. This was the expression that we obtained in the last lecture. So this expression is basically the right hand side is basically the path integral expression, path integral form for this propagator. And we have also seen that under the stationary phase approximation, so you can see that this is basically the action, but this action is now a functional of qt and pt. And then you have a functional integral over all possible paths in the phase space, which are basically qt's and pt's. But one must remember that all these paths should end at qi at time t is equal to 0 and end at qf at time t is equal to t, small t is equal to capital T. So these are the boundary conditions. So that is why we keep these two things. This is very important, as I mentioned in the previous lecture. And this action is in the Hamiltonian form. It is a functional of q's and p's. And then we saw that in the, if we make the stationary phase approximation, if we do this stationary phase approximation, which basically means that the integral is dominated by the point of stationary phase, which boils down to the fact that the integral is dominated by the point where this action is stationary. This action is stationary. So that, because this action is basically the phase in this exponent. So if you make this stationary phase approximation, we saw that you can carry out this functional integral over this momentum, and this would lead us to the Lagrangian form of the functional integral. So this would give us dqp qi0 qs p exponential a q plus dq. And this is now the phase of this exponent, this by h bar, and this is basically the action in the Lagrangian form, which is basically a functional of these q's, and therefore you have a functional integral over q's. So this is the configuration space form of the path integral, and this is the phase space form of the path integral. And once again, you can see from here that this path integral will be basically dominated by the point of stationary phase, by the paths which makes this action stationary. And that would mean, that would basically give us, so the paths for which this action S is stationary are basically given by this. So this condition basically gives the paths for which this action is stationary. And what is this thing, del S del qt? This is the functional derivative of the action with respect to the path qt. So del S del qt is equal to 0. But this is nothing but the classical equation of motion. Classical equation of motion. So you can see that this functional integral will be the contribution, the dominant contribution rather, to this functional integral will come from the classical path. So what it basically means is that you have qi 0 and you have qft, and you are basically calculating the probability amplitude of transition from this point to this point. This is basically this propagator, and there is one classical path. So this is the classical path, and then you have all these possible paths. You can have anything here. So all these possible paths are there, but there is one path which is the classical path. So this is q classical, which can be obtained by solving this classical equation of motion. So once you get this classical path, what it basically says is that this functional integral will be dominated by the classical path, and the rest rest of the paths are basically fluctuations about this classical path. Those will also contribute to this functional integral, but their contributions will be less. This is what is meant by this uh, classical equation of motion. So you get the dominant contribution from this classical. So far, what we have done so far, you will notice that we have not assumed any form of this Hamiltonian. We have not taken any particular form for this Hamiltonian. What we shall today start doing is the following. We shall now take a particular form of this Hamiltonian function. So, one must mention that the integral, the dominant contribution to this integral will be given by the paths for which the action is stationary, and that is actually in the h bar tending to 0 limit. So h bar tending to 0 limit, you have the classical equation of motion, and that is what it should be. You should keep this in mind. Now, let us take this Hamiltonian function. By the way, now this is no more an operator because we have got rid of all the operators here. There are no operators here, all these are functions. So now this Hamiltonian is a function, and we take this function to be of this form. So this is the non-relativistic form of the Hamiltonian function that we choose now. This is a particular form that we choose now, e squared by 2m plus v function of t. This is the potential. And what we want to do now is calculate this path integral for this form of the Hamiltonian function. But here we must remember that this way of writing down the path integral is only a formal way of writing the path integral, but what the real meaning of this expression comes when we break it down. This expression is actually, what we mean by this expression is the following. We have dq n minus 1 dt n minus 1 by 2 by h bar dot dq1 dp1 by 2 by h bar, and then we have dp0 by 2 by h bar, and then we have e to the power I epsilon h bar summation. Here we have summation n. So you can, this mass this n may be confusing with the mass, so you can use a different notation also. You can use, say, j is equal to 0 to n minus 1. Then we have pj 2j plus 1 by pj. So this is what we have, and then we have e by epsilon. So I think here we have epsilon, then we have this is pj. This is what we have. So we should remember that the real meaning of this functional integral is basically this expression. And all these integrals over q's and p's are from minus infinity to plus infinity. I think I have not missed anything. Yes, that is fine. And in the limit, epsilon tending to 0 and n tending to infinity, so the time slices are infinitesimally small, and you have infinitely many time slices, that is n. In this limit, this these all these integrals basically is written down in a compact form in this way. So now we should notice one more thing here, that here there are n minus 1 q integrals and there is n number of p integrals. So the number of p integrals that you have here is one more than the number of q integrals. So this is only a small observation that you should always keep in mind. And now what we shall do is we shall substitute this form of the Hamiltonian function over here and try to do the p integral. This is our n. So what we shall do now is the following. We shall first carry out the mth integral, which is from minus infinity to plus infinity. So I am writing this as m. You can write it to be j, whatever you like. It's not important because there is a sum over j. If you write m here, it will be a sum over m. So let me write it down. Let me just change it to j. So what we have now here is the following. It is dpj by 2 pi h bar exponential e to the power of this. Then we have ej minus so this is the integral that we now intend to perform. This is the p integral that we want to carry out. And you can see that this integral is basically nothing but a Gaussian integral over the momentum p. Except the fact that in a Gaussian integral, what we have is, we have this thing, minus infinity to plus infinity e to the power of minus a x square. This is a one-dimensional Gaussian integral. This is basically given by pi by a, provided the real part of a is greater than 0. So this a in general can be a complex number. So that is why we say that the real part of a is greater than 0, and the result for that is the following. This is the result. And here also you can see that this is a Gaussian integral over Pj, but the only difference is that you have an I sitting over here. But that is not a problem, as we shall see now. You can carry out the integral. But before that, I would like to just do one more step. You can see that this is a function of qj. So this will not take part in the momentum integral. So you can just pull it out. So what you will have is e to the power of minus I epsilon h bar v qj. So this does not take part in the momentum integration. And what you have now is this. dpj by 2 pi h bar, and then we have exponential. I will take this minus outside, so I will have I epsilon by 2m h bar, and then we have pj squared, and then we will have minus 2m by epsilon qj plus 1 minus qj times pj. So this is the integrand now, and we have to perform the p integral.
Sir, there
So
will be
there will
2m
be 2m
h cut.
each cut. 2m, yes, I think I have missed some factor. Thank you very much. Let me just check. I think you are right. So there will be 2m h bar over here, right? I think it is fine now.
Sir,
So
there will
there
not,
will not. Just a minute. Just a minute. Let me just
because
check.
it is already outside.
No, I think there is no H bar here, right? Is there an H bar? I don't think there is an H bar.
Sir, no, sir, no, sir.
I don't think there is an H bar.
No, sir.
It was what the previous expression was correct. So what I have done is I have just taken minus 1 by 2m common. So that gives you a minus 2m over here, minus 2m by epsilon, and rest is this. So I think that expression is fine.
Sir, the right hand side is not visible properly.
Which one?
The right hand side equation, rightmost equation.
Oh, okay, okay. I will just read it out for you. It is e to the power of minus I by I epsilon by 2m h bar
Yes, sir.
bracket pj square
Yeah.
minus 2m by epsilon qj plus 1 minus qj. You can see this? Can you see
Uh,
this?
y- yes, sir. After that, it is not visible.
Okay,
After that,
after that what we have is the following. So you have the pj over here. So there is a multiplication of this expression by pj.
okay.
And then the bracket closes. Then this bracket that I started, that closes over here. So I will write down that expression once again over here. Okay. The expression that I've written down over here, I'm writing it over here once again. So what we have is dpj 2 pi h bar exponential this, then pj square minus 2m by epsilon qj plus 1 qj. So this is the p integral that I have written down there. Okay. And now it is very easy to perform this integral. So I will just write this full expression the following. It is basically pj, and then you will have m qj plus 1 minus qj by epsilon whole square. So basically what we are doing is we are completing the squares, and then this will give us 4 m square by 4 epsilon square j plus 1 minus the whole square. So we have completed the squares now, and therefore this gives us, see, this part is independent of p, so you can pull it outside the p integral, and therefore that would give us this 4 and this 4 will cancel. Therefore it gives us I epsilon m by 2h bar times this, and then you have this p integral that you have to do. This is something, this is the P integral. But you can make a change of variable. You can call this as Pj tilde. But then the limits of Pj tilde still runs from minus infinity to plus infinity. And therefore you just have a straightforward Gaussian integral. So what we have is dpj by 2 pi h bar e to the power of this thing multiplied by this Gaussian factor. And therefore that would give us, so whatever we had, the result that we had written down here, you can straight away just carry it over. You have a minus sign, so this is pi and this is your a, even though this is purely imaginary, but this is your a, and therefore if you just put it down, you will get twice m h bar by I epsilon square root. So this is your expression.
Sir,
Yes.
there will not be I epsilon m by 2 h cut. That will be I m by epsilon h cut.
I m by
I mean epsilon will be in denominator.
Epsilon will be in the denominator. Thank you. Because this epsilon and this epsilon square will get cancelled and you will have a epsilon downstairs. So you have I epsilon by 2 h bar epsilon. Now I think this expression is correct. Okay. So now you see that what we have done is we have performed this Gaussian integral, but we should only keep in mind that we have a I sitting over here. So how could we do it actually? So let us see how we can do it. Let us consider this integral to the power of. So what we are basically doing is we are doing an integral of this form minus I say a x square. So you can call this a without the I factor. So you have e to the power minus ia x square dx. And the result that we have used just now is the following, that this is basically pi by ia square. Let us see how we can get it. What you do is you just put a delta which approaches 0 from the positive side in this integral into dx to the power of minus I a x square to the power of minus delta x square, where delta is positive. So this gives us a limit 0 positive and now I can write this as delta plus IA x square. And just now I mentioned that this integral holds provided the real part of this complex number is positive. Then you can write this thing. This is also a complex number whose real part is a positive quantity. And therefore, I can just write this down as pi divided by delta plus IA under root. With the fact that limit delta approaches 0 from the positive side. Now you just put delta is equal to 0, you get pi by IA. And this is the result that we have used here. And so finally, we have performed the jth integral, and what we shall do now is just substitute this value there in the expression for the propagator, the path integral expression for the propagator. So let us just keep this result in mind. Let us rub this out. We can get rid of this portion. So you remember that Q is P, Qy is 0. So now we have performed the jth integral. Now how many j integrals are there? There are n j integrals. Then how many q integrals are there? From 1 to n minus 1. So there are n minus 1 q integrals. And I said at the beginning of this lecture that the number of p integrals is 1 more than the number of q integrals. So if the number of q integrals is n minus 1, therefore the number of p integrals is n. So from each p integral, you will have this factor, right? So if you perform all the p integrals, because all the p integrals are independent of each other, they are not coupled. So they are since they are independent of each other, the resultant, the final answer will be a product of each of the p integrals. And from each of the p integrals, you will get this factor. Therefore, from n number of such p integrals, you will get a factor of this to the power of n by 2. So what we have is 2 n h bar 2 pi n h bar by I epsilon whole to the power of n by 2. And you should remember that here you have limit epsilon tending to 0 and n tending to infinity. So this is the contribution of this factor, and then all the p integrals have now been performed. So you only have the q integrals. So there are n minus 1 q integrals, and then we have the integrand is basically, so this is summation j is equal to 0 to n minus 1, and we have I n by 2h bar epsilon qj plus 1 minus qj whole square. And previously I mentioned that you also have this factor outside, so minus I epsilon by h bar d of qj. So this is what we have, and this thing you can write, I'm just writing down this integral part. This you can write as dq n minus 1 to dq1, and I can take I epsilon by h bar common 0 to n minus 1 . So I've taken I epsilon by h bar, I by h bar common, and also epsilon I've taken on top. Therefore, I will get n by 2 qj plus 1 minus qj by epsilon whole square minus d of qj. So this is the expression that we have now. And all these integrals are from minus infinity to plus infinity. So finally, when you take this limit epsilon going to 0, you can see that you will get a nice expression. This is qj plus 1 minus qj by epsilon. So this will become q dot square, and this will remain as it is, dq. And this will become dt, and you will have an integral from 0 to capital T. Therefore, what we have now is the following. We have some constant a. So this is some constant n, an epsilon dependent constant, right? This is some constant which is independent of the dynamics of the system. There is no dynamics here. It's just a constant. And the rest you can write it down as dq t. So this is the functional measure that we have. We have a functional integral q by 0 q of t, and this becomes e to the power of I by h bar integral 0 to t n by 2 q dot square minus v of q dt. So we can see that we have a nice expression. Now we have performed the p integral. The p integral was a Gaussian functional integral, so it can be performed exactly. And once you perform the Gaussian functional integral over p exactly, what you get is a functional integral over q. And the expression, you can see that this is a functional measure, where these once again are the boundary conditions, that the paths, that these are the endpoints of the paths. q's, and then you have e to the power of I by h bar integral 0 to t n by 2 q dot square minus vq dt. But this is nothing but the Lagrangian L dt integrated from 0 to t. Therefore, this is e to the power of I by h bar action in the Lagrangian form. S is a function of qt. So once again, we have recovered the expression that we obtained earlier, where we did not assume any form for the Hamiltonian function, but now we are assuming a form for the Hamiltonian function, which is basically a non-relativistic form for the Hamiltonian. And once we assume that, we can do the Gaussian functional integral over P, and you get the same expression, this. And this is nothing but the Lagrangian of a non-relativistic particle moving in a potential V of Q in one spatial dimensions. So, in general, if we are able to do the P functional integral, then our general expression will boil down to some constant which is independent of the dynamics of the system, and then we have a dqt with the endpoints specified to the power of I by h bar action functional of qt, where this action functional of qt is basically 0 to t n by 2 q dot square t minus dq. But this particular form of the Lagrangian we shall only get if we assume a non-relativistic form for the Hamiltonian function. Otherwise, you are not sure whether you will get this form of the Lagrangian. So this is your final result. Okay. I'll just pause for a moment to just see whether you have any questions at this point regarding the physics as well as the calculational procedure. So if you want to ask any question at this point, you can unmute yourself and just ask.
Sir,
Yes.
that means if we just consider a non-relativistic form of the Hamiltonian, it is almost the same as the stationary phase approximation.
Yes. See, there is a subtle difference here between the stationary phase approximation and the non-relativistic form. The first difference is that in the stationary phase approximation, if you remember, we have not assumed any form for the Hamiltonian function. We have not assumed any form. But here, in the non-relativistic case, we have assumed a form for the Hamiltonian function, which is a non-relativistic form for the Hamiltonian, right? So this is the first difference. And the stationary phase approximation, it is an approximation. Why? We can evaluate, even if we don't take any form for the Hamiltonian function, but we can evaluate we can carry out the P functional integral by assuming that the path integral will be dominated by the point of stationary phase. So what we are doing is, we are basically making the phase stationary. So we are extremizing the phase, and then the point where the phase gets extremized, we are calculating the path integral over that point, right? But there can be fluctuations also.
Yes.
There can be fluctuations, but we are ignoring such fluctuations. So that is why it is called an approximation. Okay, the stationary phase approximation, because we are saying that the path integral will be dominated by those paths P's for which the phase is stationary. Phase is an extremum. Okay. So this action, if you extremize this action and then you calculate the point where the action is extremum, you calculate the e to the power of I by h bar s over that point. So that is the stationary phase approximation. We shall see when we do semi-classical methods using path integrals and also the WKB approximation, this stationary phase approximation will get more clear to you. But here, this is not an approximation. First of all, we are assuming a form for the Hamiltonian function. We have taken a non-relativistic form. But once you choose this non-relativistic form for the Hamiltonian function, you don't need to do any approximation here, because now it turns out that the functional integral over the momentum, the momentum piece, the momentum parts, particular functional integral is a Gaussian functional integral, and we know that you can do Gaussian integrals exactly, and therefore, since you can do Gaussian integrals exactly, path integrals are nothing but infinite dimensional integrals. So here, infinitely many Gaussian integrals which are decoupled from each other, and therefore you can carry out the path integral over T exactly. So there is no approximation here, and once you carry out that path integral over T, you get the same expression. But now here there is a difference. If you recall, in the stationary phase approximation, the Lagrangian Q dot, you did not have a form for the Lagrangian function, but here you have a form for the Lagrangian function, which is the standard form that you know already. This is the non-relativistic form of the Lagrangian function. So this is the difference between the stationary phase approximation and this particular case. Here you can do the things exactly. You don't need to do any approximation. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So now let us proceed further. Today what we shall do is, so in principle, if I give you a potential, a form of the potential V of Q, then in principle you should be able to calculate this functional integral, and therefore you should be able to calculate this propagator. But the simplest such potential that you can take is the free particle thing, where your potential function is 0. So the particle is not moving in any potential, it is free. That is the simplest case that you have in hand, and therefore you see that even in the simplest case, is a little bit, you need to do some amount of work to get the expression for the propagator. So let us do it. Here, the Lagrangian Q dot, which is a function of Q dot, is n by 2 Q dot square T. And therefore, if you break this expression down, break up this expression, then what we have is n by 2 by I h bar epsilon whole to the power of n by 2. So this is the constant A that we have, and then we have n minus 1 dq1. So there are n minus 1 q integrals, and this is e to the power of I. To n minus 1 So now we have set the potential V of Q to 0. So this is the free particle case. So let me just write it down here. This is the free particle. As a side comment, I would just like to remark that you could do it for a harmonic oscillator potential. So in case of harmonic oscillator potential, V of Q is something proportional to Q square. And then you see that this functional integral in the harmonic oscillator case is a Gaussian functional integral. And once again, as I mentioned just now, that you can do Gaussian functional integrals exactly. You know how to do them. So in the harmonic oscillator case, you will get the expression for the, you will get an exact expression. You can do everything exactly, and you will get an exact expression for the propagator. We shall do the harmonic oscillator case later. So for free particle, we have this thing, and you can see that there are, so this n that you have, there are n minus 1 integrals, but it is a quite a bad thing, because this n is infinite now. So there are infinitely many time slices, right? So this n is infinite. So you have to carry out infinitely many integrals to get the expression for the propagator, even for the free particle. So you can see that this is not a very easy task to do, because you have to carry out infinitely many integrals. So let's see what's the way out. Let us try to do the Q1 integral first. Let us carry out the Q1 integral and see what happens. So what is the Q1 integral? The Q1 is, and see, Q1, for Q1 there are two terms. J is equal to 0 means Q1 minus Q0, and J is equal to 1 means Q2 minus Q1. So there are two terms where there is Q1, where Q1 will appear, and the rest of the terms there are no Q1s. So you can write this as exponential I is n by 2. So let us write down the two terms, Q1 minus Q0 whole square plus Q2 minus Q1 whole square. So for the Q1 integral, we have two terms, and we have two. So you can see that this Q1, once again, this is a Gaussian integral over Q1, and so we should be able to do it exactly. So let us see what we can do. The exponent is this thing, Q1 minus Q0 whole square plus Q2 minus Q1 whole square. So if you just expand it, plus we have just expanded this thing. So what we have now is 2Q1 squared minus 2 Q0 plus Q1, and then we have this. Okay. So I'll just write it down over here. So this is twice Q1 square minus this. This is what we have. Now once again, we have to complete the square here. So if you do that, you get Q1 minus whole square, and then this will give us minus 0 plus 2. It's just some bit of algebra that you have to perform by 4. Okay. If this is equal to twice q1 whole square minus okay. This is what we have. And this term you can combine it as half of q2 minus q1 whole square. So this exponent, this thing is basically nothing but equal to this full expression. Let us substitute this here. This gives us integral. So you can see that this part is now independent of q1, so you can pull it outside the q1 integral. So that will give us exponential I n h bar by 2 epsilon into half of q2 minus q0 whole square. And we have this is a Gaussian integral over q1. So we have into integral dq1 plus infinity to the power of. So you have a 2 here. You have a 2 here.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, I think the epsilon is in the denominator.
Which one?
In the exponential,
Yes.
epsilon is in the denominator.
Which one?
E to the power I epsilon m by 2h cut.
No, this is already here, right? This was already here.
No, sir, there is a by epsilon square. I mean, qj plus 1 minus qj by epsilon whole square.
I see. I see. I think you are right. So let me just check. Just a minute. Let me just check. I think there is an epsilon square you mean to say over here divided by epsilon square. So you
Yes,
mean
sir.
to say there is an epsilon downstairs, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think you are right. There will be epsilon downstairs. Now I think that is correct. I m by 2 h bar epsilon half q2 minus q0 whole square. Thank you very much. Because there is a, I should write it down rather here. I should just make epsilon over here because there is a division by epsilon square throughout. So that will bring an epsilon downstairs. Very good. And now what we have is e to the power of I n by 2 h bar epsilon. And then you have a 2 q1 minus q0 plus q2 by 2 whole square. Okay? This integral you can perform it exactly because we have just now seen the result for this. So what we do is this will give us pi by this will be okay, let me just see what it will be. It will be I by 2 h bar epsilon divided by twice m under root. So you have the expression for the q1 integral. So let us write it down here. So let me write down the q1 integral therefore. This is q1 minus integral minus infinity plus infinity e to the power of I m by 2 h bar epsilon. The epsilon is downstairs. q1 minus q0 whole square plus q2 this whole square. So this is equal to the q1 integral is twice 2I h bar epsilon by m square root 1 by 2 square root e to the power of I m and 2 h bar epsilon half q2 minus q0 whole square. You see, I have intentionally written down the result in this form. I could have written I m by 4 h bar epsilon q2 minus q0, but I have not done it. I have written it in this form. I m by 2 h bar epsilon and factored a factor of 1 by 2 and written it in this form. And here also there was a 2. I could have cancelled this 2. I could have cancelled this thing, but I have not done that. I have written it in this particular form. 2I pi is this by m square root, and I have factored the 1 by square root 2 factor outside. So this is our q1 integral. Now we have to do the q2 integral. Is this okay? Is this part clear? Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Let us do the q2 integral. So what will be the q2 integral? The q2 integral is dq2 this, and we have e to the power of I m by 2 h bar epsilon, and q2 will come from which factor? This was q2 minus q1. The next term is q3 minus q2, and there are no more q2 terms. So this will be q3 minus q2 whole square plus you have a q2 coming from this q1 integral. So you have to take into account this term, and that will give us what? See, this factor is common, so we have taken it outside. So we have a plus half of q2 minus q0 square. And what else? You should just keep in mind that you have a factor of this thing outside multiplied by 1 by square root 2. So let me just write it down. So this is the q2 integral, but in order to write down the final result after performing both the q1 and q2 integrals, you should keep that you have a factor of 1 by square root 2 factor here and also this factor here. This is the only thing that you should keep in your mind. Once again, you can see that this integral is basically nothing but a Gaussian integral over q2. And you can do the same procedure. You can expand it, take the factors outside which are independent of q2. Those factors will come outside, and the remaining thing will be a Gaussian in q2. And you know how to do it. You just perform the complete the square and you do the Gaussian functional integral. Gaussian integral. This is not a functionality. This is an ordinary integral. Ordinary Gaussian integral. You do the integral over q2, which is basically Gaussian. And if you do this algebra in the way that I have just now shown you for doing the q1 integral, you can follow the same procedure. Please carry out the algebra at home. Please finish up the steps. The result that you will get is the following: twice n I pi, sorry, twice I pi h bar epsilon by m into 2 by 3 square root exponential so this has also gone here, and finally what you will get is I m by h bar epsilon 1 by 3 q3 minus q naught whole square. So you can see that now there will be no, the q2 integral will, the q2 will no more be there because you have performed the q2 integral. So the final result after doing the q2 integral will be this. This you can do just by doing the same kind of algebra that we have done just now. So what will be the result of after doing both the q1 and q2 integrals? What is the final result that we have? So let me just write it down. So here you have dq3, dq2 and dq1. So we have performed both q1 and q2 integrals. And what are those terms? Those terms are basically q3 minus q2 whole square plus q2 minus q1 whole square plus q1 minus q naught whole square. So these are the only terms involving q2 and q1. So once you perform this integral, the final result that we have got is, see here we have got two factors. These are the same kind of factors that we have. So we have twice I pi h bar epsilon by n whole to the power of 2 by 2. There are two such integrals here, and each gives you a factor of this square root this. Therefore, the product is 2 by 2. This is number one. Then you have a factor of 2 by 3 coming from the q2 integral, but you have a q1 integral also. And that there you had a factor of 1 by square root 2, right? So 1 by square root 2 will cancel with this, and what we have is 1 by square root of 3 times exponential I m by 2 h bar epsilon 1 by m and 1 by 3, sorry, and this is the q3 minus q naught. So this is the result after doing two integrals, q1 and q2. But now we should remember that there are infinitely many integrals to perform. We have performed only two integrals. But from this result, you can see that already a very nice pattern is coming out. The pattern is that when you perform the q1 integral, you had only one factor of this square root times 1 by square root 2 to the power of this half q2 minus q naught whole square for the q1 integral. With both the q1 and q2 integrals, you have this 1 by square root 3, 1 by 3, this for both q1 and q2. Now if you carry it out for n minus 1 q1 integrals, then what will happen? So for 1 you have 2 here, for 2 you have 3 here, and this is also 3. For n minus 1 you will have n here, and this will be n. And how many factors will be there here? There are n minus 1, very good, n minus 1 two integrals. So n minus 1, this will become capital N, and this will become capital N, this is also capital N. And what is this thing? These are all product of j is equal to 1 to n minus 1 dqj. So this is this thing, and then you have, and this is nothing but the expression the exponent that we had. So this is e to the power of I epsilon by h bar summation. So this full expression is basically equal to this thing. You should remember also the factor of A that you had. So you had an A sitting over here, and that was the propagator. So the propagator is basically Qj plus 1. Sorry, the propagator is Qf T 2i0, and that is equal to this constant number that we had times this full expression. But this expression is basically equal to this, but that is multiplied by this A. But what is the A? This A is 2 pi I h bar epsilon whole to the power of n by 2. If you remember correctly, this was n by 2. And therefore now you have everything. And you should also remember that n runs from n is tending to infinity and epsilon tends to 0. That you should keep in your mind. I have not written it down explicitly. So you can see that this is n by this, n by 2. This is this by n minus 1 by 2. So only one factor survives. So what we have is n by 2 by I h bar epsilon square root. So n has cancelled from this expression completely. You have a square root of 1 by n, so that n you can put it over here. This n you can combine it with this expression, so you have n epsilon now, and then times e to the power of I m by 2h bar n epsilon 2n minus e0. But you should remember that epsilon tends to 0 and n tends to infinity such that E is equal to n epsilon, that is equal to fixed. This is the total time interval. This is how we divided the time slices. So in this limit, n epsilon becomes T, capital T. This becomes capital T. And what is Qn? This we had our notation earlier at the start of the second lecture probably, or the first lecture itself. So Qn is Qf, the final point. Therefore, you have the exact expression for the free particle propagator, which basically reads square root of m by 2 pi I h bar capital T. Capital T is the total time interval times e to the power of I m by 2 h bar capital T Qf minus Q0 whole square. So you can see that there were infinitely many integrals to perform, but just by performing one or two integrals, you can get a nice pattern, and from that pattern you can actually calculate infinitely many integrals that appears in the expression of the path integral for the propagator. And if you do that, you get a very neat expression. You get an exact expression involving the total time interval, capital T, the mass of the particle, Planck's constant is sitting over here, and the endpoints. The initial point Q0 at time t is equal to 0, and the final point Qf at time t is equal to capital T. So this is your expression for the propagator. So in the next class, we shall start from this point. So what we have done today is, we have actually performed for the summary of today's class is the following. We have taken a non-relativistic form for the Hamiltonian function, and we carried out the functional P integral to get a configuration space path integral, where we have the action in the Lagrangian form, and and the Lagrangian has a non-relativistic form of n by 2 q dot square minus v of q, and that was an exact result because the p functional integral is basically a Gaussian functional integral which we can do exactly. And then we solved the case for a free particle by setting the potential to 0, and we carried out all the infinitely many integrals that appears in the functional q integral, and we get an expression for the propagator of this form. In the next class, we shall start from this point. So let us finish here today's lecture. Thank you very much. So if you have any questions at this point, you can ask. Is there any question?
No, sir.
Is it okay? Is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Are you all following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I would just advise that you, whatever things are being done in the classes, you just sit at your home and try to reproduce the calculations that are being done on the green board, and also try to focus on the physics that are being discussed. So there are quite a few subtle things here that one must focus on, like the stationary phase approximation. When you can do the when is it at all possible to do a particular functional integral and things of this sort. So you should also focus on the physics part. But so far, what we have been able to do is that we have been able to calculate the propagator now. And in the previous lectures, we have seen the properties of the propagator. So one thing which you can immediately check is that we have actually shown it for the more general case, that the propagator satisfies the time-dependent Schrodinger equation. You can take this expression for the free particle propagator and check yourself that it indeed satisfies the time-dependent Schrodinger equation. That is the one thing that you should check. So these are the properties. Yes.
It would be nice to get some problems to do if possible.
Yes. That is what I'm saying. This is one of the problems, right? This is one of the problems that you should try and check whether this expression of the propagator indeed satisfies the time-dependent Schrodinger equation or not. This is one of the problems, right?
Yeah.
So you should do it. You should do it in yourself. You check it. You can take further different kind of potentials and also try to solve, but you will not be able to do it because these functional integrals can be done exactly only in very few cases. For example, the free particle you can obviously do it exactly, and for the harmonic oscillator also you can do it exactly. And one of the problems that you can try to solve, we will do the harmonic oscillator problem in the class, right? We will try to do it exactly, and we shall do all the calculations. One of the problems that one can try is you can try to find out the propagator for the Landau problem for a charged particle moving in a magnetic field. This is one of the problems that you can try to solve. But as I mentioned, you should please check that whether this indeed satisfies the time-dependent Schrodinger equation or not. You should do it yourself. Okay, so if there are no more questions for today, let us end at this point for today. We shall meet on Wednesday, the next class. So thank you very much.
Williams.